morning. Welcome to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM. Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday. The showers are out there, and I hope that, we are still staying positive through it all. There's a lot happening out there. We understand, we see it all, we're all in it together. But then there's the need to stay positive. There's the need to stay focused because at the end of the day, the goal is a better Nigeria and a more conducive environment for us to do our businesses, for us to do, our daily work, basically. My name is Mobola Sandra. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. Right now, it's time for Trends in the Papers. And this is where we talk about the major trending stories on the front page of our dailies. I will be having Saheed Fuhad joining in via the phone line to give analysis to all of the stories that we're going to be looking at this morning. Quite interesting conversations that we're going to be looking at. For the first time in a very long while, we have an array of different major stories to look at. There is the story of the Nigeria Air, a very interesting Nigeria Air. There was also the story of the 10th National Assembly, which of course we know that by next week, which is June 13th, we'll be having the election/inauguration of the 10th National Assembly. Well, the conversation as regards the planned nationwide strike that was supposed to happen today. There's also the conversation around that. We also have some sort of updates as regards the petition court, the presidential election petition court. And then there is also this rather interesting story where we have that the Senate has approved the president's request to appoint 20 special advisors. What makes it interesting is that there are no names. It's just, people, 20 people will be, special advisors to the president. Who are these people and in what capacity will they be advising the president, and what's the pedigree that they have to advise the president? A lot of questions. But then those are the part of the major trending stories that we're going to be looking at. And I hope I've been able to whet your appetite to stay tuned up until 8:30. And then by 8:40, we move on to Mainland Focus, where we'll pick one or two major trending stories and flesh things out. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can watch the program live and drop some comments there at Mainland 98.3 FM. Good morning, Fuhad.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you very much. I'm happy. I don't know why. Don't ask me why.
Good to be happy.
All right, so let's get to it. I'll start with Vanguard newspaper this morning. The major headline there: why we shelved planned nationwide strike, says NLC and TUC. Of course, a lot of people have questions. So the answers are here. NLC cites mood, stability of nation after general elections. Accuses industrial court of working against workers' interest. We shelved strike because government accepted all our demands, says TUC. Reps ask federal government to implement resolutions. So, Fuhad, the strike has been, we we shared some, press releases sometime yesterday morning or so, from different unions, almost about 17 or so of them, and they all, according to the mood of those letters, the energy from those letters was that, we're gathering and the strike is going to happen. That was the energy that we were getting, that the strike was going to happen. And then, the reversal, the, 360-degree turnaround, is quite an interesting one, especially from the NLC, that had been saying that maintain status quo or we go to strike. So what are your thoughts as regards the reversal of the strike from the NLC and the TUC?
Well, again, that the NLC is in a very, very tough position because, again, you are looking at a situation where Nigerians are already going through a lot. And if at this time you decide to shut down the economy, I'm sure that what happens again is that you throw more Nigerians into panic mode. It becomes tougher for them because, again, we must always understand that, look, about 60 to 70% of Nigerians are not civil servants. They don't earn a living through salaries and wages. A lot of them are actually operating in the informal sector. So they live on what you call a daily wage. If they don't go out for their, daily activities, there's nothing to take home. In fact, there are a lot of Nigerians who, when they wake up in the morning, they even know idea of what to eat until they start their daily activities before they begin to, get one or two things to put together and then, of course, take their meal for the day. So I guess the labor also has to look at the mood of the nation. I think, again, a bit of a departure from what we know of the immediate past administration when it comes to negotiating with labor. I think somehow the president is taking a different course. I think beyond what we are reading in the newspapers, maybe there are some back-end negotiation arrangements going on. You understand what I'm saying? So I think it's still to give an open opportunity for more negotiation talks and all of that. Again, it's not easy to shut down an economy, a very fragile economy like that of Nigeria. I understand why the labor is having a rethink. But again, ultimately, I'll maintain again, I think Nigerians should begin to think outside the box, begin to look at how to take care of themselves. Because at the end of the day, I see a situation where labor is probably going to get the best information for their members. And it ends at that. But for a lot of Nigerians who are not part of the Nigerian Labour Congress, I think they have to find ways to take care of themselves. But ultimately, I'm telling you, the reality is that there's little really that the government can do because of our current economic situation in the country.
All right. Leaders of Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and Trade Union Congress, TUC, yesterday gave insight into why they resolved to shelve the planned nationwide strike aimed at forcing the federal government to reverse the 200% hike in the pump price of petrol. So rising from an emergency National Executive Council meeting yesterday, President of NLC, Mr. Joe Ajaero, and General Secretary Ima Ugwaja cited the mood of the nation in view of the outcome of the presidential election still being challenged at the tribunal, the need to pursue national stability, and the restraining order obtained by the federal government from the National Industrial Court as reasons for the decision to shelve the planned industrial action. All of this communique was, put out at the end of the meeting. However, they accused the NIC, that's the National Industrial Court, of continuous weaponization of the instrument of ex parte injunctions in favor of government against the interests of Nigerian workers in defiance of the position of the Supreme Court on the use of this because last year when ASU was faced with the same situation, yes, the same situation, this was exactly what played out. And then a court injunction also came out, or a court order also came out. Oh, don't go on strike. And what exactly is the purpose of unions if they can't take a stand on behalf of certain people trying to voice out their opinions? Do you also you said you agree, but then what are your thoughts as regards the NIC or the NLC accusing the NIC of continuous weaponization of the instrument of ex parte injunctions?
It's not just the NIC. I think the judiciary needs to have a relook and take steps to ensure that the temple of justice is not hijacked, where you begin to have all manner of frivolous orders and ex parte orders in this manner. It's not just on industrial issues. You have politicians now who also run to different courts to get ex parte order, all manner of ex parte order and all of that. And there are rulings from the Supreme Court that has also indicated that some of these ex parte orders is also an abuse of the judicial process. Because what you see is that, look, it happened during the ASU era too. Look at these two. Negotiation was going on. Labour had not even made a pronouncement. The government ran to the industrial court order and all of that. I always say, and again, it's just because we are on radio, or sitting down with NLC, there are things that we would be able to really talk about. The reality is that, look, when it comes to the interest of the people, the living standards of the people, the suffering of the people, sometimes you have to take a second look at some of these pronouncements from the court. Just at the same way the government will tell you that sometimes when it comes to the issue of national interest and national safety and security, sometimes the law takes a second seat. It has to take a back bench. What I'm trying to say is that, yes, the law is the law. We are country governed by law. But I don't think the law is superior to anything that concerns the living standard and interest of the people. And I think that's supposed to be the basis of the law in the first place. Again, it is what it is. But I just think that, again, we need to take a second look at our judiciary and some of these orders they give. You know, I was saying yesterday that in this same Nigeria, a former governor was to be prosecuted for corruption. And the Supreme Court judgment an order that case will be investigated on a perpetual injunction for that former governor to not ever be investigated in this same country. You understand? And as he sits out, that man is enjoying living large, enjoying his and ex governor that have immunity, granted lifetime immunity by the court, never to be investigated.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Fuhad. So, I mean, that was also part of the conversation, or that is also part of the conversation that we have here, that the NEC in session, however, registered in strongest terms, their disgust and disapproval of the ruling of the National Industrial Court for its continuous weaponization of the instrument of ex parte injunctions in favor of government against the interests of Nigerian workers, which is in defiance of the position of the Supreme Court on the actual use of this instrument. We also have, from the story, finally, we have here that the TUC Secretary General said that, they had to shelve the strike because the government was ready to accept all of their demands. Fuad, right from time, the TUC has been a bit laid back, about all of these conversations. The NLC had been, the one who had been charging and going headlong, but here the TUC is now saying, oh, we decided to shelve it because negotiations with the government went well.
It's going on well.
Yes, it went well, and then they accepted all our demands and all of that. But then there's a story that I read in the course of the night that the federal government actually accepted this the increase in minimum wage if
what?
But not accepted. Okay, no, that's Edo State. Okay, we'll come back to that. Actually, apologies for that one. But acceptance of our demands, is that enough to? Do you think that's enough, or do you think the TUC is taking things a little bit lightly?
Well, I'm not part of the negotiation team of the TUC. But it's very important that we raise the question, who are they negotiating with, really? And in what capacity are these people negotiating on the behalf of the federal government? Is there a mandate? Is there a white paper to ensure that whatever is negotiated and agreed on, becomes implementable, becomes actionable? And it's not just mere agreement. At the end of the day, the government will say, oh, we agreed, but again, we don't have the money to do these things. They should start with us. Again, we have to look at what has been happening in the past. It's not the first time that the union had several agreements with the government. But how many of them have been implemented? So I want to question the optimism of the TUC as far as agreements or no agreements are concerned. But I really don't want a situation where they are going to be so enthusiastic about all of these things.
Fuad, you may have to move a bit. I did not hear the last 1 minute of what you said.
Okay, so is it better now?
No, it's not. Maybe you should move a bit, or maybe I should try to call you back. Oh, no.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, you're listening to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM. We're looking through the major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. And right now we are on Vanguard newspaper. The major headline, why we shelved planned nationwide strike, says NLC and TUC. So NLC cites the mood of the nation, especially after the presidential, general elections, the general elections, and also stability of the nation, and all. However, the TUC, cites the fact that the federal government accepted their demands and is ready to move on with their demands. That is what the TUC, is citing, that for their reason for not going ahead with the strike. That's the major headline on the front page of Vanguard. Now let's keep moving. Still on the front page of Vanguard, I have here Atiku accuses INEC of blocking access to documents despite paying 6 million naira. The story is on page 6 of Vanguard newspaper. So just very quickly, what we have. Oh, okay. Hello.
I'm with you, Sandra.
All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So what we have, it's not on this. Okay. Apologies. That's page 9, not page 6. Page 9. So Atiku accuses INEC of blocking access to documents. So the candidates of the PDP at the last presidential elections accused INEC of hampering the smooth presentation of the case he filed to challenge the outcome of the 2023 presidential election. Atiku lamented that though he had paid over 6 million naira for the certification of exhibits he intended to tender in evidence before the Presidential Election Petition Court, the commission had yet to make the requested materials available to him. And consequently, his lawyer, Mr. Eitayo Jegede San, persuaded the Justice Haruna Samani-led 5-member panel to defer further hearing on the petition his client filed to nullify President Bola Tinubu's election till today. So we'll get more details after the day as regards what. Do you have anything to say as regards articles?
No. Okay. They brought that before the court. They deferred,
the hearing,
the court hearing on the issue till today. Hopefully, maybe within that 24 hours, INEC would have provided them with the materials they need for their case. So,
all right.
Again, we get updates from the court today.
Still on the petition, the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, Peter Obi, court admits ward results from Lagos, Kogi, Sokoto, 14 other states. That is on page 33 of Vanguard newspaper. So you can get updates as regards what is the way forward as regards the election petitions.
I saw the presentation of those evidence, in bags, in plastics, buckets. And the court has a lot of work to do.
Who's going to go through all of that?
Well, again, I'm sure there are clerical steps.
Of
the court that would have to do a lot of work, sifting through, checking through all of those documents. I thought, in fact, there was one in the, like a travel bag, a very big travel bag, and it was well labeled. So interesting times at the Presidential Tribunal,
All right.
180 days, everything will be sorted out.
Oh,
that's the timeline.
That's the timeline. That's very, very important to note. More details of that on page 33. All right, we also have on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, INEC publishes final list of candidates for Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa, Guba polls. That's true. Let's not forget that we have another election by November. We are
3 of them.
Yes, 3 of them.
In 3 states.
Very interesting one. So INEC has approved the final list of candidates for the 3 off-cycle governorship elections scheduled to hold in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo states on Saturday, November 11. The commission also condemned the reported altercation between the convoys of Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello and the governorship candidate of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, Yakubu Muritala, in Lokoja. You can get all of the details on page 8. So among those on the list are the incumbent governor of Imo State and candidate of the APC, Hope Uzodima, incumbent governor of Bayelsa and candidate of the PDP, Doye Diri, and candidate of APC in the state, Timipre Silva, is coming back, or he's attempting.
Running this time,
exactly.
On the platform of the APC.
On the platform of the APC. Also listed are APC candidate in Kogi, Ododo Ahmed Usman, candidate of African Democratic Congress, ADC, that's the party of Omoyele Sowore. Am I correct? Yes.
I can't forget Dino Milai, PDP. I'm sure she is on the list.
Is there. And the People's Democratic Party candidate, Dino Milai. According to the list has been approved at INEC's regular meeting, and then the list shows that 2 political parties are fielding female candidates in Bayelsa State, 1 in Kogi, and none in Imo. So we'll get all of the we'll get more details, of course, as we run down to November 11 for Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa. More details on page 8 of Vanguard newspaper. All right, and finally from Vanguard, we have here World Bank, Nigeria's economic growth too slow to reduce poverty. That's on page 19. Let's quickly have a run through as 14 as regards what exactly apologies. Okay, I think I should have it here. I apologize, it's not properly numbered. That's why I'm struggling to get that particular story, but it's the paper is not properly numbered. So just a few more minutes, a few more seconds. Okay, there it is. All right, thank you very much for standing by. On page 19 of Vanguard newspaper, we have here the World Bank yesterday warned that Nigeria's economic growth is too slow to address the challenge of extreme poverty in the country. Meanwhile, the bank has retained its economic growth GDP forecast of 2.8% for Nigeria in 2023, citing challenges of high inflation, foreign exchange shortages, and shortages of banknotes caused by the currency redesign. So, Fuhad, Nigeria's economy grew too slow to reduce poverty.
The president is targeting 6%. And the World Bank is predicting
It's
about
projecting
2.2%.
2.8.
But the president is saying he's targeting about 6% growth, annual growth 6%. Again, Sandra, I think it's important that we have to put some of these issues to the table properly. In recent times, there has been this argument about our debt profile, whether it is sustainable, whether it is reasonable for us to continue to borrow. And what you find is that a lot of people who seem to support the borrowing trend will tell you that, look, we don't have any debt issues, really, if we're going to be looking at our debt to revenue, debt to GDP ratio. Because basically what they are saying is that, look, our debt to GDP ratio is about 38%, which means we still have about 60-something percent window of opportunity to continue to borrow. Well, you know what, Sandra? This is the reality, because the argument of people like that is that, look, if Nigeria is still, our debt to GDP is still about 30-something percent. United States is about 128% as our last year. China is about over 100% as our last year. And so those countries are the most indebted and they are still borrowing. I think recently the U.S. just agreed on raising the debt ceiling.
Their debt ceiling, yeah.
But Sandra, this is the question. When you consider, debt to GDP ratio, you also have to consider your revenue to GDP ratio. What is our revenue to GDP ratio, Sandra? As we speak today, 98% of our revenue is used to service debt. So it's important that we have to consider that too. The other one is our corruption index, Sandra. If anybody comes to tell us that, oh, China is still borrowing, America is borrowing, this is blah, 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 and all of that, what of the corruption index of those countries compared to Nigeria? In China, when they borrow, the money borrowed is utilized properly. Nobody gets steals it. A public official that steals money is killed immediately in China. Do we have that corruption index in Nigeria? What of America? When they borrow money, does it end up in private pockets? We need to ask ourselves this question, because it's easy for people to come and say, oh, we are even borrowing enough. What is our corruption index? The monies we have been borrowing, what have we been able to do with all of those monies? Those are the questions we should, because again, it's easy to compare America to Nigeria. But do we have the same level of corruption that we have in the country? Look at China. Look at other countries that have high debt ratios. Yes, we agree. But their peculiarities are the same with that of Nigeria? And that is why the DMO is shouting. That is why Ben Akabwele is shouting that, look, with our revenue to GDP profile and our corruption index, this debt is not sustainable. We need to be very, very careful. And Sandra, just permit me. All manner of people are out there now advising the new president. And I want to advise. Again, the House has approved.
You want to speak against people that are advising the president? You want to advise?
I'm coming. No, I'm coming. I'm coming. Just a minute.
Okay.
Now the House has approved for him to choose 20 special advisors. I'm sure part of the 20 would be people who are going to be advising him on the economy. But before he chooses his advisors, people are already out there positioning themselves as economic experts and giving all manner of advice. One of them is the new senator-elect, Mr. Jimo Ibrahim. I was watching his interview on TV, giving all manner of profile, talking about his understanding of the economy. He's gone to Harvard, he has 2 PhDs and all of that. And basically what he's saying is that we need to borrow more, we need to do this and that. That look, he was even giving a template that we can even clear all our debts in 90 days.
All right, sir.
Now, I'm coming, just But look, the same Jimo Ibrahim has several issues of running businesses around in Nigeria. I'll give you some just examples of media headlines on the same Mr. Ajibola. You know, this is a man that, has several issues of his business seized by AMCON because of his inability to pay bank debt. There are several. So what I'm trying to tell the president is that, look, be very careful the people you listen to. Because some of these guys have their own agenda, and that the president must, behind his economic ideas, first think about the good of the people and be very careful about the people he listens to.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. This is Trends in the Papers. We are going through the major trending stories on the front pages of the dailies. Don't forget that we are live on Facebook and YouTube. You can watch the program live and drop your comments there as well if you'd like to be a part of the conversation this morning at Mainland 98.3 FM. That is the handle to look out for. Let's move on very quickly now to the Guardian newspaper, where we have the major headline saying unreliable grid, alternative energy spike borrowing costs by 50%. Now, the story is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper, and we are going to be looking at rising energy costs. But before then, riders to that, Dangote Cement, BUA spent 172 billion naira in 6 months. Consumer healthcare firms expand close to 300 million naira in third quarter of 2022. Companies borrow to meet rising energy costs. Challenge will affect states. IGR's tax revenues, investors warn. So, with limited capacity to raise the prices of their products alongside the intensive use of energy, local manufacturers have yet again raised concerns about their inability to manage energy shocks arising from the high energy prices in an inflationary environment. According to the operators, the cost of energy has significantly increased the operational expense of quoted blue chip companies by over 50%, a situation that is currently unsettling investors and chopping off a chunk of their returns. Fuhad.
How with you?
Unreliable grid. And rising,
unreliable grid or epileptic.
Unreliable.
Called Abiku.
It just,
I'm sure you know Abiku.
99 times, went and came back in the past 8 years. That's interesting. So unreliable grid and rising energy costs is having serious effects, or having serious effects on operational expenses, and also borrowing costs, and the sustainability of major blue chip companies and investors in getting any sort of returns over their investments.
And that's the thing, Sandra. We have continued to talk about it. There's no way you are going to grow the Nigerian economy running on between 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. And then you are not even generating enough. Unfortunately, the transmission keeps going off and on 99 times. So you have a grid become pain of development in the country. If you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. If you have a grid that collapsed 99 times in 8 years, what are you talking about? But I know that I'm going to be looking at the actions of the President Bola Tinubu, with what he wanted to do in Lagos, the introduction of the Aeron project. I'm sure that again, we are waiting for him to begin to start some of these things, and so we can only hope and anticipate. Because again, unbundling the national grid will require a legislative framework. So that's why I say that, amongst other things, this is the time we're expecting to hit the ground running. Some of us are so, expectant that by now we may even be getting names already released. Like I said, he has been given approval to get 20 special advisors. We're hoping to see the list of ministers and all of that. Because again, some of these things would have to be handled by experts who are chosen to really sit on these issues and ensure that it's done properly. But honestly, Sandra, we need to unbundle the national grid. It's not going to help us. We need to generate more. Because, again, we are talking about blue chip countries and major companies, Sandra. Even SMEs are struggling. There's no business owner in Nigeria now that would not complain about the cost of energy. Eating deep into their revenue, eating deep into their cost of production and all of that. So it's a major thing that we need to look into. And if there's any way to also relieve people of the sufferings of subsidy removal. It has to be the government working, intentionally to ensure that we have some level of supply when it comes to power. And it's a major, major agenda that the government has to really focus on.
Speaking of alternative energy,
Mm.
there are conversations, or there's the argument that alternative energy should not be the main source of energy if only our supply from our grid is reliable.
Look at the name, Sandra. It's alternative. It has
Mm.
now become main.
Mm.
If you understand what I'm saying, the name in itself speaks for what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be alternative. So if anything happens, it becomes an emergency
Mm-hmm.
option. You
Mm.
just quickly do it. And it's not supposed to be this thing you run for hours.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, Sandra, there are big manufacturing companies that cannot even switch their source of power. For example, if you go into the textile industry, immediately they set up their line of production, they cannot switch off.
Mm.
Are you also aware, Sandra, that most of the telecommunication masts are run on alternative source of power generator?
Mm.
And that also goes into cost of telecommunication, it goes into cost of production and all of that.
Mm.
So it's important that we have to declare a state of emergency on the power sector. Whatever it takes, legislative framework, if we need to pay off some people, a lot of these disco dancers, because again, we are talking about the grid, Sandra.
Mm-hmm.
What about the distribution network? A lot of these discos don't even have the capacity to do the job that they're handling now. What are their investment index? What have they invested in distribution of power in Nigeria, Sandra? So because if we generate enough and we're able to unbundle the national grid, what about distribution? If communities are still buying transformers themselves, and then you buy the transformer, you have to still beg the discos to come and help you power it, and then the demand for money. Your cable cuts off, you have to be the one to buy the cable. Electric pole falls down, the discos that are collecting money don't know they have to be the ones to come and repair it. It takes days before they even respond to your call and emergency request to fix these things. So I say again that the discos, we have to look at it. We have to look at the transmission companies. Everything has to, holistically, I think we have to unbundle everything. And ensure that it does not become a tool of political patronage again, Sandra.
Mm-hmm. Well, following the high cost of operations, companies are now, companies' profit after tax have now declined, and stakeholders are expressing fear that the trend could shrink, firms or companies' potential growth and ultimately hamper equities investors' dividend payments, especially with some organizations still battling with the COVID-19, aftermath, and also the cash crunch aftermath. More details on page 6 as regards unreliable grid, alternative energy spike borrowing and cost by 50%. Moving on from that story, still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, CSOs knock NLC for suspending strike, e-hailing drivers down tools and shut down apps. That story is also on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Very, very quickly, we don't have so much time. There are discordant tunes, or there were discordant tunes yesterday in reaction to yesterday's suspended strike. While organized labor on Monday put off their planned strike for today, and all of that. But what we have here is that the e-hailing drivers union, which is also an affiliate of the NLC, said their members remain resolute in their own decision. They are moving forward as it is now.
It will affect their business, Osandra. You know that. It will really affect their business.
So Nigerian e-hailing drivers union, which is the amalgamated union of app-based transport workers of Okay, that's a mouthful. All right. The Amalgamated Union of App-Based Transport Workers of Nigeria, OUT1, yesterday announced that its planned strike scheduled to commence today, June 7, will proceed as planned. And this was communicated as OUT1 rejects low fares, directs workers to shut down app services from Wednesday, which was made available by the union's General Secretary, Ibrahim Ayoade. So the e-hailing drivers are moving ahead. I don't know if you've noticed, the e-hailing drivers, they haven't been much, spike in their fares yet. So and then with the fact that they still have to buy fuel at this, amounts that they have to buy it. What do you think of their own position And do you think it will have a major effect on this fight for stability as regards our fuel sector?
It will affect them because people will resort to using other options. Because when their fares become too expensive, people will probably just use the other
but them now going ahead with their strike. What do you think of as regards them going ahead with their strike and the impact it will have?
I don't know how they want to do that in isolation of the Labour Congress, and I don't know how that will
They've closed their apps. The apps are down.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That for people who use the e-hailing apps, yes, it would have effect on people who use them, but how that would force the government to take a second, to rescind on its decision to remove subsidies, what I don't know. Because again, for the labor movement to really have a strong effect on government when it comes to policy, they have to work together. It has to be in unison. But if you do your own separately,
okay, let me break something. Let me break it down for you, for those of us that enter e-hailing cabs. In recent times, when you get the e-hailing cab, they accept the ride, they come over to you, and you check the app. The app says 1,000 naira, for example, hypothetically speaking, 1,000 naira, and the driver looks at the fuel situation, and 1,000 naira is not going to cut it for him, and then he says, "Oh, let's negotiate. Can you pay this certain amount? Excuse me, can you pay this certain amount?" Upward now, taking the price upward to like 5,000 and all of that. So what they are saying is that operators have refused to meet the demands of the drivers. Okay. They've not adjusted the prices of fares on this e-hailing rides.
If the driver trying to force their operators now to also
increase increase their own price.
Yes, I think that will happen. Okay. I think that will happen automatically because it doesn't make sense if you are buying fuel at 185 and you are now buying at 500 naira per liter.
Yes.
Okay. It's not sustainable. They have to increase their fares. And I think that will happen. That may just happen maybe in the next 24 hours.
Because they are saying that to address their concerns, the drivers are demanding a minimum of 200% increase in fares, a 50% reduction in commission charges to stop the unlawful deactivation of drivers who refuse to work due to the low fare and attendant unprofitability. So their own is not even...
It's an internal thing.
Yes, it's an internal thing. It's not about...
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay.
All right. Well, riders to that story, other riders, we have Obi saying, "I support subsidy removal, but must be with conditions." That's Peter Obi of the Labour Party. And then we also have subsidy ruined Nigeria.
What conditions? I like details. And that was a problem, really, Sandra, during the election campaign.
Yes.
Everybody said we are going to remove subsidy.
And the how?
There was gradual removal, but the how was always missing. And I kept asking the question, how? Nobody answered, and nobody cared to ask. But here we are now. It is what it is. We move.
We are now in the situation. Nobody knows.
We are now asking how. How we?
Well. All right. We also have here on the front page of The Guardian, very, very quickly, reps term Nigeria air launch a fraud. Urge Tinubu to probe project.
Sandra, I'm in a very good mood, but we'll take this story.
I've been looking forward to the story. That's why I've been delaying it. I've been delaying it and all. I read all of what I needed to read, and Fuhad, there's so many things that's happening behind closed doors in this country that just we questions every day and never.
And then somebody will be encouraging us to continue to borrow, just borrow. With this level of corruption.
So Fuhad,
just take your story, Sandra.
The House of Representatives Committee on Aviation said the launch of Nigeria Air by the Muhammad Buhari administration was a fraud done in secrecy. It specifically accused the outgone Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, of not carrying the National Assembly along in the whole process of establishing the national carrier. As it is now, at the meeting, major stakeholders in the deal involving the federal government and Ethiopian Airlines denied knowledge of the unveiling. For they said it was not a launch, it was an unveiling.
They sent the story to you yesterday. The MD of the so-called Nigerian Air has said that they only hired the plane.
It was a chartered flight.
It was a chartered flight.
Yes, that's what he said.
It was not really an unveiling.
Yes.
So why did we have the water salute? Because water salutes
and then why
are
did we
done
have Nigeria Air
on
Nigeria on the plane?
So who was trying to deceive Nigerians? And that was why I said I called for the immediate arrest of the immediate past Minister of Aviation. We need to begin to investigate him and get him prosecuted. Because what was done with the unveiling, or the so-called unveiling, and that water salute was to deceive Nigerians. I know, Sandra, we have been questioning, we have been asking, why is this man so desperate about this Nigeria Air thing? To what end, really? And yesterday, when I was reading the story of the so-called MD of the Nigeria Air, because as far as I'm concerned, there's even nothing called Nigeria Air. He said, look, he's sorry that it was a chartered flight. It was not an unveiling. And there was a part that really got me annoyed, Sandra, that what they did was to show to investors who had put their money in that project how the plane will look like when they start to operate it. To show them how the plane will look like. And then you brought in a chartered aircraft, you branded it Nigeria Air, it started water salute. Sandra, the height of it all for me. The height of it all for me. And then for the assembly saying they were not carried along. Were they sleeping when this thing was happening? When we were reviewing that story every day in the paper, they have an oversight function to perform.
No, but Fuhad, okay, yes, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Because I wanted to.
What of the oversight?
I wanted to.
Their job? Yes.
I wanted to counter that by saying, remember that there was a court injunction stopping the flag off or whatever of Nigeria.
Sandra, that is airline operators of Nigeria doing their own bit.
Yeah.
To safeguard the country from that mess and corruption. But the assembly never did anything. That's what I'm saying. They are now saying they were not carried along. You don't need to be carried along. You have a duty to ensure that there's oversight on the activities of these ministers and ministries. Did they do their job? Were they sleeping when all of this was happening? The battle was only by the AON, the airline operators of Nigeria. They were the only ones fighting that battle. The house kept quiet, so they are suddenly waking up from their slumber.
Well, as it is now, the House of Representatives have termed the whole transaction a fraud, and they're looking into probing the outgone Minister of Aviation, because there's a whole lot that has gone into Nigeria Air. There is a whole lot that has gone into Nigeria Air. There's a lot of figures, but now we have that.
Yesterday, Sandra, we reviewed a story that said about 37 billion has been paid to some consultants without record from the CBN. Yesterday, we did a review of a story that about 37 billion was paid to some particular consultant on this particular charade.
What are they consulting us
on? Because it's boring. They're in private pockets like this.
The consulting on I don't know how to chat. Well, let me read what I have here. It says here that the MD of NAMA, all right, that's Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, revealed, Mohammed Odunowo, revealed that revealed that the aircraft bearing Nigerian colors was a chartered flight from Ethiopia. We issued an approval for it. It was scheduled to go back the following day. The airline is an Ethiopian registration. So Hadi Sirika was not at this panel or committee hearing or whatnot. He wasn't. Yes.
Sandra, who approved that water salute? And to achieve what, really? Somebody approved. You don't understand what I'm saying. We know what the water salute is for. It's for an inaugural flight of a brand new airline that has gotten all the necessary papers and certification. That's when you have a water salute. So who approved a water salute for a chartered aircraft? And why was it branded Nigeria Air? Or Air Nigeria?
Well, at this juncture, I'm reading now from the paper, it is important to say that all our previous engagements with the immediate past minister, Sirika, on the national carrier project, and after he announced Ethiopian Airline as major stakeholder with 49% equity share, and the federal government having a nominal share of 5%. How do we own something that's 5% ours?
Can we please just recall all the money we spent on this project?
Including the money we spent on the logo.
The logo, the consultant, everybody must pay back whatever they got from this charade and get them prosecuted.
We don't have so much time anymore. More details on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. The House of Reps have termed Nigeria Air launch a fraud and urging President Tinubu to probe the project. All right, I also have here controversy trails Obi's parley with Labour Party lawmakers over National Assembly leadership. That is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. I'll be back to that because I'm just trying to tie one story to it. You're still listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. We're going to be rushing now because we don't have so much time, on our hands. But very quickly, let's run through the Punch newspaper. The major headline: subsidy. Reps demand NNPCL audit over unaccounted 2 trillion naira assets. Oh dear Lord. Some NNPCL subsidiaries bought crude oil without evidence of payment. Oh
my goodness.
This is, I don't know.
And there's no money to pay ASU, there's no money to fix our schools, there's no money to fix our roads. And all of this is happening. Has been happening. When we say these things, and we have been borrowing.
Fuhad.
We have been borrowing.
When I saw this headline, and then I asked myself, do we really have oil theft? Or maybe we have people like buying crude oil without evidence of payments.
Sandra, it's just that we don't pay attention to some statements.
Okay.
I will remember what Ajibola told us on Sunday. He knows the energy sector very well. He said, look, if you dig deep into the Nigerian oil sector, the more you go into it, the more pessimistic you get about the future of Nigeria. Sandra, we know these things. And that's why when you ask me the question of revenue or expenditure issues, I said, look, it's both ways, because even the little we generate ends up in private pockets. It ends up in private pockets. Are we going to bail the cat now, Sandra? Who's going to bail the cat? And are we going to have a departure? Because that's why I said that, look, we say we are going to remove subsidy because of corruption. We agree. But the question is, when Nigerians continue to suffer because of the inefficiencies of government, then who will bail the cat? At what point are we going to have a stop to this high level of corruption in Nigeria? That's why I said that for anybody that argues about borrowing, always put on the table what is our corruption index.
Hey. All right. Finally, unfortunately, I won't be able to take all the rest of the stories, but finally, very important, the National Assembly yesterday approved President Bola Tinubu's request to appoint 20 special advisors. The president neither listed the advisors nor their positions in the letters addressed to Lawan and Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, who is now Chief of Staff to Tinubu. And so, Fuhad, we have the National Assembly okaying 20 special advisors for the president with no names and no positions. Your thoughts in just a minute.
No, I think we'll be expecting you to drop a list and announce that. I think what the House also really did is that, okay, you have 20, you have an opportunity for 20.
Okay.
You've gotten the 20, but eventually we're going to get a name and a list and position. But beyond that, Sandra, just 30 seconds. When you also get to ministerial nominations, please, we'll beg the president. The idea of sending names to the House without portfolio should please end. Because what you now have is that those people appear before the House. They don't even know the positions they are vying for. The questions are not relevant to the position that the president will eventually give them. So that we don't have a repeat of a minister of education saying he doesn't know anything about education.
I was going to bring you back to that when he was given. Probably it was just called.
No, the tradition has always been they send names of ministerial nominees to the House for questioning and approval without portfolio. So at the end of the day, they now begin to share the thing when they approve them. And then the idea of people saying because you're a former senator, just bow and go should end. So we're going to be waiting for what Ajibola will do with his list. But whatever name is set for approval as ministers are concerned, he should please add portfolio to them, because we want to really know whether people are qualified to hold those positions in the first place.
Thank you very much, Fuhad. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Just very quickly, we still have here on the front page of the Punch, finally, Senate throws out Buhari's controversial water bill. That is on page 3.
Yeah, Mr. Can be very happy about
very,
it.
very happy. House alleges fraud, asks Tinubu to suspend Nigeria Air. That is on page 19. Also, very quickly on the front page of the Nation newspaper, we have Tinubu in crucial talks over Senate President and Speaker. Because with the report that we're getting now is there are indications that the President may be backtracking on his choice of Akpabio and Wase as Senate President and Speaker, respectively. Yes.
10 seconds.
Okay.
That story is in the Vanguard newspaper.
Okay.
I don't know whether other papers have it. So let me tell you, that is a planted story, 100%.
Okay.
No source to that thing. A source. That is a planted story, so don't bother with it.
We have moved. All right, thank you very much. And that will be all for this morning on Trends in the Papers. We are out of time now. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, where we'll pick 2 or 3 major trending stories. We'll open up the phone line for you to join in on the conversation. Thank you very much to Ademola Abidin and JP Udo, who dropped their comments on our live sessions on Facebook. We appreciate. So we'll be back by 8:40. Stay tuned. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, and we are the sound of Lagos.